Hey Amanda, how are you doing?
Hey Steph, how you doing?
Good,
Ah,
good. We're doing something a little bit different today, which is where we're kind of recording at the same time for both of our podcasts, which I haven't done before, but I have to say is kind of efficient on our part. So I'm excited to chat with you again. This isn't the first time we've talked in a podcast. And of course, we know each other, on the internet streets as well. But I'm excited to ask you about some of the topics we haven't really touched on this podcast yet, but I think are so important. So I'm excited to have
yeah,
this chat with you.
it's goddamn genius that we're doing this. It won't be the first. We haven't just invented something. This is obviously something that people do, but you know, my podcast is called With All Due Respect, and your podcast is called.
Fuel your strength.
And we decided that, Steph and I, gosh, I can't even think how long ago we connected, but we connected a couple of years ago, I'm going to say. And I think we both liked each other's work, but then you reached out to me and said, do you want to jump on a Zoom call? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then that's when we really sort of realized really hit it off. We have a lot in common. Steph wrote a book that basically was like my book. We just say the same things. Both married Scotsmen as well. So there was
Mhm.
that, right? That was our like little connection too.
Yeah, always a always a fun time when we can talk about our Scottish husbands. And I really loved all the pictures that you were sending through from when you all went to Scotland, and we went back to Scotland to visit last year. But anyway, it's a nice connection point, and just to even talk about knitting and all the things that we do, but have in common outside of our businesses as well, and the things that we kind of do online. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, we're only gonna, it's only about the business. And I think you do an amazing job of in your own social media being really human. And I think that's something that's missing so much from what's on the internet these days.
Feel as though it did take a lot. I've always been very real, like that's not new, but I've never been particularly vulnerable. And I had to be vulnerable if I was going to start talking about menopause. And it was never something that was on my bingo card in particular, but I went through a phase of my life that I struggled with and didn't have any answers to. Had lots of questions, not many answers, and sort of decided to make it my mission to find those answers. And they're out there. It's just very difficult to pass them all together, right? And in our industry, we've both got similar education as well. But in my industry, like I had never heard anyone talking about menopause specifically. I think Stacey Sims was the first person I heard like bringing it up into the conversation. But like historically, I remember like all of the textbooks and the lectures I'd go to, and it was like nothing changes really. And it was like nothing changes. Your strength training still important, and especially as you become older. And it sort of went from like the pregnancy conversation to the old people conversation, and it went from lifting weights to doing weights in a chair. It's like this like gap in the middle, and I just think that even if the nuances are small of what we need to do in menopause, even if the changes aren't that dramatic, but we just need to at least have the conversation. And the conversation was missing. At least it was 10 years ago when I started going through this. The conversation is here now, thankfully. Um, but what I'm finding is when we're talking about menopause in the conversation, is that women are looking for these, or they're hearing, I should say, they're not looking for, they're hearing these sound bites in social media. And I think that's what we want to talk about that seem to make it so extreme and dire and negative and awful. And it can be, but they're looking for this magic pill because they're so vulnerable and they're feeling desperate. And so when people like you and I are coming on saying, well, this is what we know, this is what the menopause societies are saying, this is what the studies are saying, it doesn't get as much traction. And I think we should dig into that a bit today.
Yeah, you mean like the nuance and the context and the the fact that social media in and of itself can become a bit of a echo chamber for the more extreme, points of view or the only the sort of black and white of it, the binariness of this conversation, right? Because that's what gets people's attention. That's what fuels the algorithm, right? Anytime something is posted where people want to argue back and forth, that's that's quote unquote engagement, but it also has this knock-on effect. And I would be curious to know, in 10 or 20 years, how even just
Yeah.
the way content is amplified across a social media platform can change people's actual real lives in terms of what they're doing or not doing. And I mean, it is like on one hand is great because we have this democratization of information and sharing and things that we never had before. But on the same token, it's really fucking scary because sometimes the things being shared are not the most helpful. And I think that's
Or
kind of what
accurate. Or
yeah,
accurate.
yeah,
Yeah.
or
And
accurate.
it's funny because today I got a text message from somebody who's going through menopause. She's a coach, she's a trainer going through menopause, trying her best to be educated. It's very, very evidence-based. She really wants to give accurate information to her clients. And she said to me, "Holy fucking shit. I thought the nutrition world was bad. Now I'm in this like midlife menopause world and my mind is being blown." She said, "Why are doctors on there saying things that fall outside the medical consensus, fall outside the agreed position statement of the organizations that are talking, say, like the North American Menopause Society? When they do a consensus statement, they look at every single piece of evidence that exists and they come up with the best known data, and nobody else is going to do that for us, right? And so then when a doctor will come out and say something along the lines of, should you put vaginal estrogen cream on your face? Sure, why not? You're an adult, make a grown-up decision. You decide for yourself. The Menopause Society are not the gatekeeper of you. And this is what a thought leader looks like. I mean, that was a post I saw the other day, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me, right? Is that where we are now?" And women are like, really? I can put estrogen on my face. And I'm sat there going, like, so first of all, there's so many questions outstanding with that. Like, one, do women truly understand the different types of estrogen that exist? Estradiol, estradiol, all of no, right? Two, do women will they be able to pass that information and say, oh, the Divigel or the estrogen gel that I put on my body that's systemic, oh, can I just wipe a little bit into my face afterwards? It's completely different to localized vaginal estrogen. And three, are there any long-term data studies to show that the tissue of the vaginal area is the same as the tissue on your face and it's perfectly okay to use? There isn't. And so, yes, it's okay for someone to say, you're an adult, make your own mind, but I'm just like, you're potentially putting people at danger. What for the clicks, for the likes? And I'm going to just finish this by saying, and I know that that's why it was done, because the same person then came on and went, oh, my post went viral. Isn't that amazing? And I'm like, really? That's what you're looking for? You're looking for that viral post?
Mm,
That's the world we're living in. And I'm
yeah.
just like, I want to get off.
Yeah, I know, I want off this ride, and, that's definitely not the first thing that, even we send messages back and forth to each other sometimes, like, "Have you seen this?" And it's easy to get so preoccupied with, what are the things that people are saying that, like you said, are there's no evidence behind this. It goes against our major consensus papers that we have from these organizations with people who have really put in the time to look through all the research, comb through it, come up with a best practice statement. And that's the best we have at this point. And at the same time, it's so easy to unknowingly put so much time and effort into all of those things that we sort of lose the thread of even our own business, what we're here to do and share, and like what our own zone of genius is, but also what our scope of practice is. And it's tough. It's really, really hard to just kind of put the blindfold on, or the blinders on rather, and just kind of make your way, because we are seeing the fallout. And I know you work
Yes.
so closely, right, with different groups of people, right? Like you are a trainer, you work with organizations that are trying to put out better, more informed resources for women. You go out and speak, like you're talking to a lot of people. And at the end of the day, those folks are coming, I'm sure, to you and saying, I did XYZ. I followed what this person, that person said, and I'm either no better off for it or I'm worse off for it. So at the end of the day, it kind of does filter down a lot of the times to coaches and other folks who are here for, maybe the lifestyle change. And that's the stuff that we can do in our scope of practice. But we're seeing the effects of this sort of
And,
trickle down of misinformation and things that people are doing.
you touched on it as well about the scope of practice. It's so important that that people realize that, like, you and I can never ever say to someone, I think you have perimenopause and you should be on HRT. Even that statement that seems maybe benign to someone and innocuous is not. We have no right to diagnose people, yet there are certifications in our unregulated world that actually give this false idea that coaches should be able to take your blood work, analyze your hormones, determine what's wrong with you, and then maybe refer you. This is what happens to a functional doctor who they're working with to get unregulated hormones potentially. And that scares the bejesus out of me. Since when was that okay? The experts in that field are the endocrinologists, the OBGYNs that have done the menopause training, not a coach who did a weekend course on hormone management or whatever they're calling it. And I just think that as coaches, I wonder why we would want to do that and take on that type of responsibility when what we can do is we can say, hey, these are some good resources. This is how you could talk to your doctor. This is what the current prescribing guidelines are. These are like the latest studies or whatever. There's so many different ways you can help people. And then we step in and go, but your lifestyle choices really can make a difference. And this is how we can help because this is our scope of practice in our area of expertise, right? But it's not enough. It doesn't seem like it doesn't. And honestly, I'm like literally flabbergasted. People send me, you know, is this account okay to you? Does this look okay to you? Hormone expert. And I'm like, no, no, it's just a no. I don't even need to look at it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's it seems like it's only increasing in intensity and how many accounts there are and people who are offering these types of services. And I think that kind of comes back to one of our original thoughts. And one of the things I wanted to talk with you about is this idea of women at this stage of life who are potentially not feeling super great, who are looking for answers. And 10 years ago, there was not the market for marketing things to women in menopause that there is now. It's almost become this complete 180 flip where before, and I'm sure, yes, there is still a lot of taboo here. And, you know, women didn't hear these conversations from their aunts and mothers and grandmothers. And, we're it's sort of this like new generation coming through of, hey, we're going to start talking about this, which you've been such a leader in that conversation through sharing your own story and sort of the things that you've learned along the way and then creating resources. But I think now, at least from my perception, is we we kind of went through this really rapid change where it was like no one was talking about this. And then all of a sudden people realized, oh, women with menopause are really seeking answers. They are really frustrated. They do not feel good on a day-to-day basis. They want to feel better. And oftentimes they have a lot more income freed up because of the phase of life that they're in. Can we market all sorts of things to them, and we're not even talking about really good quality coaching for the lifestyle stuff or whatever it is, but just these products, like shampoo for your menopause hair and all these things that are out there that are now the word menopause is slapped on it to get someone's attention really fast and get them to buy something. Whereas before it was almost, part of the pink it and shrink it, right? Oh, let's make this
It's
drill for a woman. Let's make it pink, And now it's
but
sort of
it's the
like,
same. The
right.
pink washing, now it's the Meno washing, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
I think you nailed it there though when you said it's our the Gen Xers are like pushing back. We're like, why don't we know about this? It shouldn't be a mystery. We need more information, more support. But we don't, do we need more products? No, probably not. The market's $16.1 billion for menopause alone. The majority of that is made up of supplements, which shouldn't surprise you. I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
Mhm.
And you and I see them all the time, don't we? Like these Meno blends, the Meno blend of and the thing is with supplements, again, it's unregulated. And if you don't need them and your body doesn't need them, it's just going to get rid of them. Expensive pee, isn't it? Right? That's essentially what we're creating. Um, but I feel as though we asked for more attention and we've got it, but it's not all welcome, right? And so I did a post the other day on um, Boots number 7, one of my favorite brands in the UK, and like you'll get this being married to Z, the Scotsman. Like Boots is a super lovely shop, and they sent me a box of goodies, and I was like, oh, I use number 7, I use it anyway, right? And then I opened it, and it had menopause written all over it, and I went, really, you've gone there? And so I did post about it saying, I'll always be loyal to you and I'm going to use these products. But did you need to stick the word menopause on? Granted, they said they surveyed 7,000 women and they were involved in the making of this product and it's different from many of their other products, blah, blah, blah. So they emailed me and they were saying, when we did a survey, 78% of women said they would buy something with the name menopause on. And then it was really interesting, Steph, because people on my post were like, I wouldn't buy that. That's just ripping me off. But I've realized that I've created my own echo chamber, right? The people that follow me are the feisty buggers like me that are just like, stop fucking selling us shit we don't need, right? But that maybe isn't indicative of all women out there, right? And so clearly women must want products with menopause because the market is worth so much, right? But yeah, like it frustrates me because while that big market is happening and all of these products are out there, the real work isn't happening, and the real work is the lack of support from the medical community in the workplace as well, potentially, and lack of knowledge that women have, and the inability to sort of like hyper sell the lifestyle stuff we know works, that we know is really helpful. Actually, I wanted to turn it on you now and sort of say, when you specialize in women over 40, you have such an amazing voice in this space. It's very pragmatic, very practical, and I love the way you meet women where they are. That's what we need in a coach, right? I send people to you all the time because I just value the work you do, but do you, you get these women in your arms and you say to them, listen, I can help you, but there isn't a magic pill and there isn't anything dynamic that we're going to do. I'm going to get you to nail the basics and I'm going to get you to understand what the body needs. But I wondered if there's anything that you do specifically for menopausal women there, or if the conversation's different, because that would be interesting to sort of hear.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, when I say women over 40, I say that because I'm of the impression that I'm going to have women kind of across the continuum here, right? Whether it's they're completely pre-menopausal, they're not even in perimenopause yet. They could potentially be in perimenopause or they are post-menopausal. So recognizing even there that it's a fluid, spectrum, it's not going to be one. Obviously I could work with people who are postmenopausal and call it that, right? Like you haven't had a
Or even postpartum at 40, let's
right.
face it.
Yeah, right. So it's just a time of a lot of transition for a lot of people with their bodies, with their lives. I've had so many clients who are in the process of their kids are leaving the house, they're going off to college, or they're having a separation from their partner, or they're having something with their job, or they're caretaking for adult family members who are now ill and they're having to be the caretaker now of their parents or their grandparents, their aunts and uncles. And it's just a real shit time for a lot of people. There's a lot of really hard stuff. So a lot of times the conversations that I'm having with people aren't even just about the training or nutrition. It's really in helping to understand what are the factors that are essentially the potential barriers to people being more consistent, to developing those foundations and doing, like you said, basic things. So, for example, if somebody's work life is extremely chaotic and now they're adding on top of it that they're not sleeping really well because they're going through, changes with their sleep in perimenopause, or they're postmenopausal, or still having hot flushes that are waking them up in the night. That's a really relevant piece of information to deliver and to have that conversation and just check in. How are you sleeping? Well, I'm not sleeping very well 'cause I've got all these life stressors that are going on. And then I've got, this interrupted sleep at night. So when somebody comes in to do their training plan, or they're going to open their app and do their training plan, and they're like, wow, I really don't have super high energy today. How am I and how are we as coaches providing options? How are we having that conversation that even checks in with that person that's asking those questions? We have to get to know people, right? Oh, how's the transition with your son or daughter going off to school going? Oh, I'm so stressed out about that. I'm or like how people's lives are outside of when we get them in terms of either nutrition or strength training or whatever it is, significantly impacts what's going on in their ability to follow through with a plan. And I think that stuff, like even asking the question, or asking those questions, getting to know people, checking in with them, treating them as a whole person is so key. And being there to be the person who's listening, and also knowing when to refer out. I think this is a big thing too that coaches can do better with. So, for example, I have several clients who will say things when they first come in to work with me in strength training. They'll say, "Oh, look, jump rope. I can't do that. I'm going to pee myself." And I'm like, "Okay, well, this is a really, A, thanks for telling me, right? We shouldn't have shame around those things. But B, in the meantime, what else can we do so that we can take that jumping element out or modify?" And three, I don't know if I said C or three. Third, you know, have you had a conversation with a pelvic floor PT or urogenitary? Have you had a consult with urogenitary doctor? Just even telling women that, well, now yes, you might technically not be postpartum in terms of the fourth trimester or the first year after delivering a child. But by the way, even if you didn't have a child, you can still have these urogenitary symptoms, and having that conversation, helping them to have that information, that knowing how they can go forward and have that conversation, even sharing, what an appointment could be like with someone. I mean, I've had people that have come to me and I've just started working with them and they're like, I've been dealing with this for 7 or 8 years, which I believe the average amount of time that elapses between the point where symptoms are onset and people actually seek support is something like 7 years. That's a long time to feel like you can't be fully participatory in your life. So I think it's not so much even the technical information of like, here's how we're going to do reps and sets, but in the approach, how we treat someone like a whole person. We listen really carefully, even listening for like between the lines of what they're saying, and how we help them to modify again within our scope of practice to meet them best where they're at so they can continue to move forward, but then also know when to refer out, know who, do we have references we can give them? Where are we sending them to NAMS and, looking at these resources, where are we pointing people to? Or are we just saying, Yeah, that can happen, and then that's the end of the
Yeah.
conversation, or that's not a thing, and I think more coaches now are becoming more menopause informed, which is great, but the
That's it. Menopause informed, that's all we want. That's all
yeah,
we want, isn't it? We're not asking for fix this person because that's
correct.
not what. And do you have to unpick a lot of conversations as well? Like, so, like, say, let's use nutrition for an example. You're pretty up on all of the nutritional stuff, and yet women are like, I tried this diet that was 1,200 calories, and it was intermittent fasting, and then I wasn't allowed to eat quinoa. I was only allowed to eat quinoa as my grains, and I lost like 30 pounds, and I felt great, and then it all just backfires because it's not sustainable. And one of the things that I really find challenging is that there's a lot of people talking with an air of authority saying women need to do this and you need to do that. Um, and it often isn't the case. It isn't a case of women need to do that. And the example I just gave is a popular diet that exists out there, and it often gets thrown up in my Facebook group that I have. And women in my Facebook book group, again, are people sort of similar to me, but there's a lot of back and forth conversation, which actually I quite like. Women will say, I tried that and just felt garbage. I felt garbage not eating breakfast. And other women are like, oh, I've never eaten breakfast for like 5 years and I don't eat till 2 o'clock. That to me sums up the 360. Let's look at this person as a 360 being. I have to eat when I wake up personally, and I don't get the idea of not eating. Like the idea of not eating to me is like, why would you not eat just because like this book told you to do it? It's crazy. But I find that there's often a lot of pushback. Find that there's a lot of pushback because it's maybe been successful for them in the past. How do you sort of deal with that?
This is one of the hardest things that I have to have conversations about because it it runs really deep, right? It's not even only the 10 years ago or 5 years ago intermittent fasted and it was great and I felt amazing and saw great results and I'm like, "Well, how are those results going now?" I don't know. It's not going so well now. So, it's hard because let's say we're talking to a woman who's in her early 60s. That by the time she gets to work with one of us has had 6 or 7 decades of all sorts of experiences around food, a different time in history where people didn't talk about things like diet culture or bodies were talked about differently on TV shows and there's so things have changed culturally and yet they're still really fucked up in so many ways.
Yes.
And
And they've
by
most of them have dieted, like all have
yes,
maybe tried like 7, 8, 9 different types of diets, probably minimum.
totally. So we've had I would say most cases, it's rare for me to run into somebody who's like, I've never done a super restrictive diet. They're out there. They don't always make it to me. So we've had this long, extensive history of on and off dieting, maybe things that you did when you were in your early 20s or after you had a child when you were much younger, worked differently, life was different. We have folks who, unfortunately have had really negative experiences with family members that have, or school or whatever it is, have really shaped their own beliefs of their self worth, their
Yeah.
body image, that this is deep shit, right? And so you can see how all of these different facets have shaped how a person thinks about their bodies and then what nutrition must look like for them to continue to change their body. And their bodies are often changing in this period of perimenopause. And it's kind of this perfect storm of circumstances. And I always try to be really clear with people, again, scope of practice, that I can help someone with their outcomes in the present and creating different systems and structures in the present that get them different outcomes in the future. But I am also really clear with people that sometimes talking to someone, having a counselor, having a therapist is going to be necessary to help unpack some of the things that are causing people deep emotional distress or things that they can't seem to move past, especially around things like their body, their self-worth. Maybe it was a traumatic event. I mean, there are just certain things I can't do. And
Right. And I think that's so good. It's the same here. Like it's the scope of practice, right? There's a time and a place for everything. And even like referring out to another, like a registered dietitian who might specialize in something like that. It
mhm,
doesn't always have to be a counselor, right? But
for sure.
I have an example of that, like that. So I feel like I've always had a healthy relationship with food. I can't relate personally to a lot of the trauma that comes around food choices and body dysmorphia, etc. But something happened to me when I was younger that made me realize that this was a thing. And I suppose I just fought back against it. And I remember I went to my granddad's house, who's a grumpy old bastard in the north of England. And he was always like, oh, hello, come in. And then he gave me a hug and he was like tickling us like he did with me and my brother and just like playing with us. And he went, oh, somebody's a bit chunky. He said, have you been eating too many pies or something? And I think I was maybe 16. And for some reason, when I, between 16 and 18, put on a ton of weight and then it just fell off again. It was like, the way the body goes through these waves. And remember just like looking at him thinking, you think you just said I'm chunky and it wasn't positive. And as soon as my mum's face was like, oh God, oh my God, oh my God. And as we left, she went, your granddad was telling you that you looked well. You thought that you looked healthy. And I went, you didn't say that though, did he? He said that I looked chunky. And she said, oh, don't be stupid. He's not being mean. And she was trying to deflect the whole thing. And that was one of those instances where I just was like, he just said something off the cuff and it's made me feel really crappy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that, there's households where that type of stuff happens on the day. You're not going to eat that white bread, are you? It's going straight to your hips, or like anything, it's just fly away, but it sticks. It
Yeah.
sticks like, and it's hurtful.
Yeah.
Um, and I read something the other day, and it was like, are we becoming more sensitive as a generation? Are we becoming more woke or whatever? And then underneath it was like, no, we're just becoming more educated. We're just becoming more aware. And if I'd ever had that awareness when I was 16, which is a long time ago now, like 35 year ago, whatever, I see I can't do math very well. The I would have said that's inappropriate, granddad, and he wouldn't have cared, but whatever. But I just think that we can't always help people fix those things, right? And
Yeah.
it is outside of our scope. But the diet industry over time has got so bad, and I feel like it's particularly bad now for menopausal women because we have a pain point that they see. And all of these diets that come at you don't come at you in a positive way to help you. It's fear-based marketing,
Yeah.
saggy arms, trucker belly, meno belly, wobbly legs, you name it. That's how it comes. Or is your body inflammatory? Is your metabolism broken? All of those things. And it pisses me off because it's so disrespectful. Um, but selling a book that's like saying this is what balanced eating looks like and this is eating enough protein isn't gimmicky enough, right? And it doesn't reach those pain points quick enough.
This is one of my biggest bones to pick and one of my biggest pet peeves. And, I will also say when I think we're in this phase of life, we're busy, we're stressed, there's so much going on. And then on top of it, we feel like shit. It makes sense from a logical point of view where we're like, let me just find the quickest path out of this. Like, because if we're already busy, we're already stressed, we don't have the space. Removing things on the surface does seem like the easiest way to accomplish what we need to accomplish. But the learning of the systems, the structures, the skills that people need, the shifting of environment, the social support, all of those things that really go into making positive change take a lot of time and there is a learning process. It is not easy. It's not going to be a quick fix. And so when I see, and this if I could like this is my soapbox of the time. It is all of the fitness and nutrition marketing, to your point, that's all about women fixing their problem areas, right? Fix this, fix your love handles, fix your bra fat, as you said, right? Or you could list like a million of these. Your underbutt, your menopot, your menobelly, all of this shit, your bat wings. I mean, we could go on and on forever. And we see this kind of stuff in the feed constantly. The thing that really bugs me about this isn't just the fact that it's there and it's the thing that's going to get you because on why do people make change is because and how does marketing work? It pushes some kind of emotional button, right? It's a pain point. And so, are we as an industry though going to fucking do better or are we going to continue to feed the machine and then the consumer, which again, yes, consumers can be educated. Yes, that's a thing, right? We need media literacy more than ever before. However, it is reaching that person in that vulnerable, emotional mindset, in that emotional space in their life where they're just feeling like everything is out of control and they just need something that's going to be a quick fix. And yes, they hate the way that thing looks in the mirror. And so I think the onus here is on the people in the industry, some of our colleagues even, who are using this kind of marketing to bring people in. And they say, "But that's what they want. That's what they're asking for." And I'm like, this is a chicken and egg, right? If you're going to stop this from happening and you want to do better in this industry, then it's on you to do better and stop expecting the consumer is going to want something different when it's all she's seeing. And this is where I get kind of pissed off because people will tell me, but that's what people are asking for. And that's why they're hiring me. And I'm like, right, because that's the kind of marketing you're using to bring them in. And I understand it's much harder to lead with, like you were saying, the kind of things you do in your book or the kind of ways that I market strength training, right? Isn't about fixing this body part that you hate or over promising that your body composition is magically going to change in 4 weeks. I mean, this just isn't what happens. And yes, does it impact probably a business's bottom line? Could it, in theory, be easier and more lucrative to market in the way that's going to hit that pain point in just the right way, and that person's going to whip out their credit card, boom, sale done? Yes, but these are the other people in the industry who are also saying, "Oh, but behind closed doors, then I educate my client
Oh
about
my
what they
God, you've
really mean
just
by this."
nailed it. You've
And
nailed it
this,
because that's
yes.
exactly what they say.
Yeah, so this is the huge problem. If you're unwilling to do the work up front to actually educate the person, then to me, A, that sale is made in an unethical way, or on unethical terms because you're or unethical because you're bringing that person in under different pretenses and you use the marketing you know was going to target their pain points in that really kind of gross way to get them in the door. And then you're like, but then I'll educate them later. I don't know. To me, that's lacking ethics. And I do think that people in the industry have a responsibility to market things in an ethical way. And it's, what people are willing to do is different, but then to bring that consumer in under those pretenses or to say, well, they should just do better in terms of what they're looking for. You have a role to play in that, in how you market things. And if you're unwilling to change that, then I don't think as an industry we're going to see much shifting,
Oh, I
you
agree.
know?
And I have an experience of this. I did a post once and it was like, want to get rid of your saggy arms? And I just was like, how does this make you feel? Like literally, how does this make you feel? And people were like, that's gross. And another one was like, well, actually, I probably would buy into it or whatever. But then the author of I didn't know who the author was. And then the author reached out to me and on my post publicly said, this is how I market because I know women care about their saggy arms or their fat bellies. But once I get them in, I care for them. And look, it was the same thing. And I'm just like, but that's unethical, and you're a machine. It's just a mill. It's like a fitness mill, right? But then I also see the opposite being true. And an example of this is like somebody who's selling a sleazy diet, right? A sleazy diet that you know is, for me, it's like starvation, and alongside it are supplements that you need to take to go with along with the diet. But then on the surface of it, in their social media sound bites, it's all smoke and mirrors. Things like, every woman should be strong, everyone should be doing strength training, and every woman is worthy, blah blah blah. But then when you read there, dig deeper, it's exactly the opposite of that, right? It's encouraging like smallness and thinness and youthfulness, and I find that just as problematic. And I see
Mhm.
that a little bit. I see that a little bit more. And I think it's because I'm so skeptical and I don't trust anyone. I trust you, but I do. I am a bit jaded, right? And so people are like, "Don't you think this doctor or this person here is great?" And I'm like, Maybe," but I also know that underneath all of that smoke and mirrors, it's a load of bullshit and it's predatory,
Mhm.
and and
Yeah.
and, and so I can't separate the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The reverse is just as bad. And
Is this
it
just a podcast for us to stand on our soapboxes and rant?
I
Is
mean
that what we're doing?
it probably is gonna turn out to be that, but I think it's, I think it is helpful for people to hear this, and I don't think it's
Yeah,
just, for the purpose of of just commiserating. I think there is that, but I also think it can help people when they are looking for solutions. So for you, what do you tell people? And this is, hopefully going to be a practical takeaway, but they're looking for a trustworthy, nutrition coach, or they're looking for a trustworthy lifting plan or fitness plan or gym or whatever it is. Like, how do you help people to filter through that stuff? Like, what do you
yeah.
say?
How do you do that? Yeah. Well, first of all, if somebody's promising something that seems too good to be true, like that's my thing. Chances are it really is. If they've got behind the scenes selling supplements, or they're part of a multi-level marketing scheme, any of those things are just instant red flags. Like if they're trying to upsell you as soon as you like buy into the plan, like that's another thing. Like buy this and you can get, like, there's a lot of that happens. Buy this, get this free, get this free. That's the sleazy marketing that's just a little bit hard to stomach. But what I would do is like I'm really like I built my business originally, and I think you did it initially on word of mouth and referrals, and I still think that that works. Like if you like can find someone that can give like a good feedback and look for like positive reviews. Most coaches should have reviews on their site. Like maybe check those out. Maybe see if you can do a trial with them and see if that's something that's an option, or like can you see what their content looks like. But then ask. I mean, I know it probably happens to you, but I get asked questions all the time. Is this person worthy? Does this person feel like they give information? It's really hard to parse through, but one of the things is that's really helpful is having some basic underlying knowledge, like knowing that like the person should be offering you nutritional education, but not meal plans. The person should be able to write you a strength training program that's adaptable, that contains like progressive overload, that sees you in the long term game and isn't just like a generic like 30-day blast or something, right? So it's like somebody that actually sees you as an individual, as the whole person. It's difficult though. It's
Mhm.
very difficult, right?
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
I hear
I
that.
I think for people, I oftentimes will refer people out, especially if they're brand new to strength training. And I know that finances can be a barrier to this, but I feel very strongly that if someone's new to lifting weights, they're going to get so much mileage out of working with a trustworthy
Yeah.
trainer, a coach in person. You just learn so much more in such a short, even if it's a short time where you're learning the ropes, you're learning the basics of movement patterns and quality movement. Like, I wish I'm probably gonna get like a million messages here. Like, I wish that I had that type of facility and I could do that sort of thing because I would love to facilitate that. But I also know I don't want to be a gym owner. So, there is that piece of it where I'm constantly telling people, like, if you can work with someone in person for even a few sessions, you're going to get so much out of that. And then they'll say, well, how do I find someone? And my best answer here is ask the people you know in the geographical vicinity in which you live, because they're going to be able to say, steer clear of Chad at this place, but also this gym over here, I had a great experience. Or people will tell you. I mean, we see like negative reviews spread like wildfire. So they're at least going to tell you they didn't like this. They went there, but it wasn't a great experience. And that first line of asking for recommendations from the people you know is huge, because that's going to give you great insight into where you can start your search. And I think
Yeah.
that that's highly underrated. It is
And I might
just
be,
it's just to
and I
ask.
think is ask, yeah. And a lot of people might say, oh, I'll just go to Orange Theory, I'll just go to F45, and they maybe look like viable options and maybe cheaper. But I have to be honest, if someone was to spend like three sessions with a personal trainer versus going to like a 10 class for Orange Theory, which are about the same, you're going to get more out of the trainer. And the thing is with things like Orange Theory and F45, and I've tried them both, is they go from 0 to 100 really quickly. There's no
Yeah.
nuance. I also would say to people, even if you're an experienced lifter and you've just had a break or an illness, or you've just felt lazy and haven't done anything for a while, whatever, there's no shame in like looking for a beginner style program.
Mhm.
And I often do that. I'll go back to basics, do very, very light, easy workouts. And I think that even if you can't afford a trainer or something, like see if you can sign up for a program that is specifically for beginners, that it works on those basic functional movements so that you get used to feeling what the muscles feel like, but under a lighter load and in a more of a biomechanic way. Yeah, it's difficult because in this online world. Oh my God, we've been talking forever. I'm thinking we should think about wrapping this up. I don't want to go without talking about knitting, right?
Oh.
Because Steph, some people might watch this, some people might just listen to this. So I've brought something to show
Oh.
Steph, and I'm going to describe it for those who can't see it. So I'm wearing a top that we from a favorite knitting designer that we like, Drea Knits, and Steph got me onto her. She does all these really cool color work patterns, and you and I have done a bunch of them now, haven't we? We really
Mhm.
share our designs. I'm going to a Secret Santa next week, and I need a $25 gift. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to make something. I only need one. So I'm making a traditional Canadian mitten called a trigger mitt. And a
Ooh.
trigger mitt is from Newfoundland, so right on the East Coast. And I bought this knitting book called the Saltwater Knitting Pattern Book. And a trigger mitt, if you were to like look at your hand, you'd see your thumb and your forefinger and separate them, right? And then the other three fingers stay together. Right, that's what a trigger mitt is. So that your index finger is separate, and it was used for fishermen so that they could do the fishing. And I'm
No
showing you, I'm
way.
sure Steph a little picture of it now. I don't know if everyone can see. And then the last bit is like a mitt. So you have half mitt, one finger, and then one thumb. And it's done in lovely like color work. It's really,
Oh,
really, really cool. And I did them for
obsessed.
my son last year. This is what they look like
Ooh.
when they're finished. And so it looks almost like, those Japanese socks where the big toe is separate.
Yeah,
That's what these gloves are.
that's
And they're so,
genius.
so cool. And I told my son, that you can point with them, you can do the loser sign with them, you
I
can
need
show
one that
someone
does this because I feel
I
like this gets a lot.
well, the minute that I knit them last year, someone said, you need a middle finger glove. And so like I'm like, that really just means that the last two are knitted together, right? That's literally it. Anyway, so that's my latest knitting project. Have you got
Oh,
any on the go?
I do, and I can go grab them, but I have one that I have not. blocked yet from last year because it
Oh
was
my
so
God.
cold when I finished it that I knew if I tried to wet block it outside, it just would never dry. So I have one there. And then I also have just a simple one that's going to be more of almost like a cardigan. So like a really flowy cardigan. And it's also a Drea design, but it's kind of
I know
like
the one.
just a loose shell, and then it's gonna have a different collar, so I'm working on that, but
Oh,
it's a big one.
so lovely. You do
Yeah.
big designs. I do these little small designs that give me a little bit of a quick win.
Yeah.
But I'm a seasonal knitter and it is the knitting season. Like the winter,
Yeah.
pretty much I don't knit in the summer. I can't be bothered. So anyway, we'll share our designs on Instagram when we're finished,
Yeah.
maybe. That's what we do, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've been knitting less. I picked it up again in 2019 when I was kinda going through basically feeling really burned out in my business, and I was like, "I wonder if I still have my grandmother's knitting needles in the closet." And my grandma taught me how to knit when I was 8,
Same.
maybe.
Yeah.
So I did it on and off a couple times over the years, but without without somebody to guide me and without YouTube, it was really hard. And now with YouTube and you can look up stitches and that's really
So
changed the game.
easy. Yeah.
Um,
YouTube is brilliant for any crafting. Do you
totally.
find though that like for me, it's a moment of like reflection and calmness and quiet and like I just find I struggle to like find peace and over the chaos. And I find peace when I knit. And that sounds a bit profound, but I do. And you get a product at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it more for the process, I have to say. I mean, I have so many pieces that I wear occasionally. Rarely even. I mean, I do have some warmer weather pieces that I wear here in San Diego, but I live in a pretty warm climate. And so a lot of my pieces I end up gifting or things like that because for me, the enjoyment is in the making. And I also know that one of the reasons why I love it is because when I'm knitting, I cannot be on my phone.
Yeah,
I cannot be
exactly.
scrolling. I can't be trying to distract myself with all of that. Sometimes I'll watch a show or something like that at the same time
Mm,
or listen to an audiobook or something, but
that's
I
what I
can't
do.
I can't physically scroll when you've got to use your thumbs for what you're doing. So that's been really helpful and I do find it really meditative. But really trying to increase my walking and I was training for a GORUCK event, especially in the past year. A lot of my extra time where I would sit down and knit went to walking. And I do know that there are people that walk and knit, and I cannot be one of them because it's not safe around here. There's a lot of streets and I can't be distracted in that way. But it's yeah, it's something that I actually was thinking about the other day. I was like, oh, I gotta pick up and finish that project that I'm working on. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm glad
get
that
back
you
to
feel
it.
the same way about it as well. Yeah, but walking or knitting are the same type of activity for me. You know, they do the same thing for me
For sure.
emotionally.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should wrap it up now.
Let's
So,
wrap it up.
but I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I hope everyone else has
Same.
enjoyed the show. I mean, this is literally what our chats are like when we phone each other on Zoom. So it's really quite nice that we did this recorded for a change.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think, I appreciate you and the way you use your platform is very aspirational for me. I think I look up to you a ton in terms of how you are framing the conversation. I do see you as a leader in this space and someone who is fighting the good fight. I know you want the best for women. I know that you are really dedicated to bringing the best quality resources and helping to point people in the direction of really good information, really good practices, really good support. And I just admire that a ton about you. So I appreciate you. I think everybody should go check out your TED Talk. And we didn't even talk about that, right? In terms of bringing men into the conversation and how important that is. So I know on our side, we'll link that in the show notes so people can check that out. But thanks for doing all you're doing and being that leader and paving the way. It really
And
matters.
And I might like that was very, very, very kind. Thank you. And I've learned to say thank you because that's something I wouldn't ever do before. But I feel the same way about you. I feel as though I'm hoping this gets more people to get eyes on you because I follow you for my own like personal like health. Like I love that I'm always like, should I buy a rock, Steph? Should I be doing this? I mean, and I know my stuff, but I find what you do really inspiring and there's a lovely calmness about the way you deliver the topic as well that I find well you are so authentic and you're a really great voice in this space and just continue what you're doing because I know both of us get frustrated so don't stop what you're doing.
I will. I thank you so much.
Yeah,
So
thank
yeah,
you.
thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yep, take care. Bye bye.
Bye.